What's up, guys? Welcome to Broke and Stressed, a PT student podcast where we talk about our lives as broke and stressed physical therapy students. Throughout grad school, you'll come to find that the struggles that you're having happen all the time to thousands of students across the country. You are not alone. In this podcast, we'll share our personal stories and walk you through how we overcame some of our own struggles. I'm your host, Ruben. Let's have some fun, have some good conversation, and let's get into the episode. Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of Broke and Stressed. Welcome to the podcast. Today we are joined by Kaleigh. Say hi, Kaleigh.
Hi, guys.
She's one of my classmates in PT school. I'm very honored to have her here today. So one thing, Kaleigh, that I want to start off with, though, is this tradition that I'm starting with my podcast, is I want us to share an embarrassing moment of yourself from PT school, just to lighten up the mood, just to have a little fun, just to start off.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. Oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. And it just explains the person that I am. So I don't know if you've talked about Dr. Thorpe. She was our anatomy professor. She is amazing. She is like the most incredible woman I've ever met, my role model.
Sure. Yeah. Love her.
Yes, she's the best. And so I respect her so much. And one day we were learning about the homunculus, which is part of your brain that kind of registers the motor and sensory inputs and outputs to different parts of your body. So when I was studying it, my friend had circled a part of it that demonstrated the genitalia and said, this is where foot fetishes come from because the feet and the genitalia are very close together on the homunculus, like on your brain. And so I'd forgotten about that. And I went to ask her a question and I pull up the slide and I go, hi, Dr. Thorpe, I was just wondering. And she goes, yes, that's genitalia. And I go, oh my gosh. I was like, no, that wasn't what I was asking. I was like, I learned in a psych class long ago that that's where foot fetishes come from. I just thought it would help me remember like the placement of things. And she just kind of was looking at me and I was like, anyway, and I rambled off my question.
Oh my gosh.
It was so bad. It was so embarrassing. My friends cannot let me live that down to this day. Yeah.
What was her face when you were saying all that? What was she like?
She was like I think she was just trying to be polite. She was just kind of like nodding and smiling a bit, but I could tell she was like, get on with this. Like, let's
Oh my gosh.
That's so bad. Yeah.
That was first year? Oh yeah, that had to be first year. Was that first semester?
First semester, first year.
Oh,
yes. What a great first impression.
Oh, yes. Love that. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. So let's get into it, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
So topic of today's podcast is going to be mental health. So let's first start off with what your interpretation of mental health is, what it means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was telling Ruben before, I just am so passionate about this subject. Anything mental health captures my entire heart, and I always love talking about it. So I'm so honored that he asked me to talk on this podcast today. So to me, honestly, mental health truly encompasses like the mind-body-soul connection. It's something that I think is as relevant, if not more important than one's physical health. And I think it's something that just kind of not only captures how you're able to balance like life stressors with your own emotional and mental well-being, but also just kind of help us just get through life. Like life is really hard and we're not meant to do it alone, and nor I think are we always equipped with the tools on how to handle things that life throws at us from a young age. So mental health is just something that can take place of any type of form, but it's just something that makes you feel good, makes you, your heart and your brain happy.
Yeah, I love that. I like that it's been come to light a lot in the last couple of years. It's definitely something that hasn't been talked about. It was kind of even stigmatized to address mental health before like the last couple of years. And I think that's great that we're all talking about it now. We're learning about it even in class, you know, the significance of it. And there's stuff on the internet for it and Instagram. It's amazing how it's evolved. And I think that's so cool because you're right. It does encompass how we live. Mental health, it incorporates how you handle, I saw a definition, like exactly what you said, handling your stressors. If you're in a poor mental health, it's hard for you to tackle life and just go and do the things you want to do. And that's why it's super important.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I think it's so great, like you said, because it was stigmatized for a long time. And I think sometimes I feel like it's not totally unstigmatized, or I don't know if that's the word, but I feel like there still is a stigma on it today, but it's
Hmm.
just so great that they're finally incorporating it into like our education and bringing it into schools at a younger age. It's just something that finally people are more comfortable talking about. So I think that with time, it'll get even better from here.
Hmm. How did you get to be so passionate about it? I know this was like, I asked you if you had a topic that you want to talk about, and this was the first thing that came to your head. And I thought, I was like, wow, that's awesome. Yeah, let's talk about it. So why, if you don't mind sharing a little backstory on, or like why you're so passionate about it?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, of course. So this is something that I've had a lot of experience talking about and dealing with my own mental health, and also just kind of recognizing the impact that mental health has just in the world. My mom was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and then it's
Hmm.
like a spinoff of that turned into addiction when I was going into my freshman year of college. So it was something that kind of came out of the blue. It was really, really impactful just on those years. And it obviously, these are severe mental illnesses. And before that point in my life, I'd never really given, mental health or mental illness as much thought. But when it kind of hit so close to home, like, and it was kind of took over my world, it really made me realize like how little I'd done to promote my own mental health. So since then, it just kind of began this incredible journey of me not only learning how to like respond to someone and how to kind of like set up boundaries and react to someone that does have a mental illness in your life and that's like really close to you and intimate with you, but also just kind of recognizing how to just become more aware of your own mental health and how to take care of your mental health. I started therapy shortly after my mom got diagnosed. And since then, I've just continued with therapy these past 6 years. It's come so much in handy, especially during PT school, because of like all the added stress that
Oh
comes
yeah.
with like such a rigorous program. Gosh, it's insane. And I really think that everyone, I think it should just be something that's as regular as like a primary care like checkup, just because it is so nice whether or not you're trying to like quote unquote like deal with something. It's just so nice to just sit down and kind of talk with a professional and have a third party in like all of your everyday stressors. Like the things that therapy can bring to the table are so incredible, and they've changed my life like 110%. So it's just been a really great, it's definitely not been positive the whole time. Like it's really hard, but it's just something that has dramatically improved my life. And so it's something that I like just love to talk about and love to share with others. Just therapy is one of those things where it's like, yeah, I know that's great, but I don't really know where to begin. And I don't know if I want to, like it kind of seems, again, that stigma can come into play with it. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's kind of the, like a very Cliff Notes version of my journey.
it's amazing. Yeah. I think when you highlight there, being able to go to a therapist is awesome because, yeah, a lot of people, it is still stigmatized. That's part of the stigma is, oh, I don't want to go to a therapist. And we're about to be physical therapists, and it's just like treating the body. You have to be able to treat the mind, and you shouldn't feel shame for doing so. You're taking care of yourself.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It was really weird too, because when I started, it was kind of, I started going through all of this in a time where it was more like everything kind of still happened behind closed doors. Like mental health was kind of talked about, it was referenced in media, but it wasn't something that I would have ever felt comfortable like talking about publicly. And it's just, again, it just seems like one of these things that like, oh, people only go to therapists if they're like, if they're weak, or if they, or can't handle what life, or if they can't, if they're incapable of doing things on their own. It's absolutely not that. It's in fact the complete opposite. I feel like it makes you recognizing that you need therapy in itself is
Hmm.
just like, shows such strength that of like your own capabilities and just willpower, and also going to therapy and treating your mind and treating your brain just as you would treat any other organ, if it's whether or not it's like it's sick, is just like makes you stronger in the long run. So it's really an amazing thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about now the more recent aspect of your mental health journey, going into PT school. We talked about it a little bit, but like, how has PT school affected your mental health, and what have you done to kind of address that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think PT school or really like any graduate program is just such a huge life change that I feel like I personally was very ill prepared for going into it. To me, the biggest hurdle was like getting into school because that's kind of what all of my undergraduate professors kind of like told me like, oh, the hardest part's getting in. So once I had gotten in and I realized I was going, it was kind of like, oh, the rest of this is just going to be fun. It might not be easy, but I'll be fine. And little did I know, like, how much it just kind of takes over your world. Like, it's a complete life change. Like, all of free time is gone. All of your hours have to go into, like, studying everything every day, every hour. And it's just also something that you're surrounded by so many incredible, brilliant minds, but you kind of, like, can get into this mindset of, like, the word is escaping me right now. It's where you realize you don't think you're good enough to be there. What's that word? It's
Imposter syndrome?
imposter syndrome. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Imposter syndrome sets in so hard. And so that was something I was definitely not prepared for. I was riddled with anxiety, not only over my grades, but just like, oh my gosh, like they're going to kick me out. Like I, don't belong here. Everyone's so much smarter than me. They have so much more experience than me. And especially in the beginning, like first few semesters when you don't really know anyone too closely yet, you can feel really alone. And so that was something that was just a huge shock to me. It took me about a semester to realize, holy cow, like I'm not okay. I need to get back because that during that time had been like off of therapy. So I'd realized like, this is insane. Like I kind of told myself I didn't like, it seemed silly to me. I was like, oh, I don't need to go back to therapy or think about my mental health just because of school. Like that's so ridiculous. But I very quickly learned like, no, this is a very stressful thing. This is something that can, severely affect your mental health. And so it's best to take time to invest in yourself and to help yourself during this extremely stressful time.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy that you say that because Kaleigh, when I think of you, I literally think of you as like a role model student. I want to try to like reach your level of studiousness. And it's crazy to think that, you would have imposter syndrome because everyone you might not even expect is going through that. And that's going through that anxiety. So what tips do you have for people or what do you do personally to deal with that?
So honestly, for me personally, like making gratitude lists seems so trivial,
Oh,
but it is such a huge, powerful thing that I do. And I wish I could say I've been doing every day, but I've slacked a little bit, but I'm usually really good about at least like waking up. I either do it when I wake up or when I go to bed. And my rule for myself is I'm going to write down at least 5 things I'm grateful for. And those 5 things had to have taken place over the past 24 hours. So I feel like it's really easy to just be like, oh, I'm grateful for like a roof over my head and my family and my dog. But what's challenging is like really trying to sit with your day and think of like, okay, what are little things that have happened to me that have made me smile or like that I'm grateful for? And it's just such a mood booster. Like you don't realize you could be having the worst day and just the power in finding 5 things that you're grateful for like has a tremendous power over your mood. So that's something that I do that I absolutely love and would love like endorse wholeheartedly. Exercise is also a huge one. I do a bunch of yoga. I also love like kickboxing and trying to get myself to run because I hear running is really therapeutic and I want to get on that level. I'm really bad at it, but I'm going to try anyway.
oh my gosh, me too.
So hard.
It
So
is
hard.
hard.
But anything that like gets my body moving makes me feel super good. And alongside that too, and kind of the two is just like journaling or just taking a moment to make sure you do something that brings mindfulness to your day. I forget, I think her name was Evita, someone on your page had talked about mindfulness.
Oh, yes.
And I completely resonated with her words. Like she was talking about how important it is just to become self-aware and take observations of like just your body in space in that moment. And taking a minute, whether you do that through like meditation or listening to your favorite song or just honestly just sitting with yourself and your thoughts for a minute, it has such power, especially if you get into the practice of like doing it every day. That's been something that I've been especially doing during this quarantine when I feel like anxiety is on an all-time high for the world right now. It's so powerful and really, really effective.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like mindfulness, that's a hard thing to achieve, that sense of introspection, being able to relax and just reflect on, if you're feeling anxious throughout the day, what were your triggers? What made you feel this way? If you're doubting yourself And yeah, being able to journal, I think that's a really good one, is journaling. Being able to reflect on your day, and maybe if you're having some negative thoughts, I think whenever I journal and I write down some negative thoughts, I come back to it later. I'm like, why was I thinking of that? And then you're able to think of, oh, what triggered this? And then you could be your best friend in that situation. I know people are always hard on themselves, but one thing people should always do is, you can always be your biggest critic, right? But you should also be your best friend at the same time. And you should be able to be like, hey man, like give yourself some slack. You're doing the best you can with the knowledge that you have. And I think that's hard for a lot of people, in this fast-paced world, especially grad school, medical field. It's hard to take a moment to relax and sit down and debrief.
Exactly. And that in itself, just recognizing that like you have that power to like be your own best friend, and you have that power to kind of like counsel yourself, is a huge thing. And if you're able to do that, that's amazing. But I personally have such a hard time with that. Like I feel like my mind is constantly racing, and the great thing that mindfulness does, or journaling does, and just becoming self-aware of like physical thoughts that are running through your head, just can kind of help you develop a list of like pain stories, where as in like there's certain themes around why you're having these thoughts. So like if you're laying in bed at night, or I'll lay in bed and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I didn't get this done, I need to do this tomorrow, I have to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm feeling like this. And I can take a moment, and if I can really listen to those thoughts, and I can say, okay, why am I having all these thoughts? Like, what is the pain story behind it? Like, oh, it's my fear that I'm not trying hard enough, or it's my fear that I'm not gonna pass this class, or it's my fear of X, Y, and Z. Once you can diffuse those like racing thoughts from the actual pain story itself, like it's really easy to, I shouldn't say really easy, but it's a lot easier than to give yourself some slack and to kind of comfort yourself in that way of, okay, it's okay. These are not any serious dangers that you should be stressed about right now. Like you're not in immediate harm. You're just, worried about X, Y, and Z, but we can handle this tomorrow. So like, let's get some sleep. So
Yeah,
exactly, like becoming self-aware of your thoughts is so powerful.
definitely. Do you have, for anyone that's listening, do you have any great resources for mental health, or anything that you've used to help you along that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I should have prepared the actual articles or looked at the name. Um, so I know a few off the top of my head. So there's this book called Boundaries, and it's essentially talking exactly what it is. Like one thing that I feel like is really important that we often, that I, at least a lot of people, myself included, hold a lot of guilt around, is being able to set boundaries for yourself. Something that you can do with, anyone in your life. And it's just something that it's kind of recognizing the importance of what do you yourself need, not taking into account anyone else's feelings, and learning how to kind of approach others with that mindset. So for example, say you have a friend that's like really like, really negative, kind of hard to be around, who you love dearly, but you realize the toll it takes on yourself when you're around this person. It's kind of learning like, okay, I might need to limit the physical time I spend with this person just for my own mental health. And that's okay. Like that does not make me a bad person. Or with like divorce, like it's really hard kind of navigating divorce. My parents are divorced. And so kind of learning how to set boundaries of like, okay, I'm going to spend this time with my mom and this time with my dad. And I can't let myself feel guilty about this, because like I need to follow what I know is best for me. And just know that even if I'm physically not with someone, I can still love them from afar. So that has been really helpful. PT specific, I love this other book. It's called The Book of Joy. And that it's written by the Dalai Lama and then the Archbishop Tutu, I think, of South Africa. And essentially what they talk about, it's two people from completely opposite religions and spiritualities sit down and just talk about joy, and how to, like, the difference between happiness and joy, and how to bring more joy to your life, and how to kind of just make everything more joyful. And that's been something that has been super powerful for me, especially going through grad school. Just, I feel like we're very stuck in this place in our life. Like there's so many things I wish I could do right now, whether that be, like working or making a difference or making money, not like drowning in student debts.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And so just realizing like there are little things that I can do in my everyday life that I have the power to like affect my happiness and to bring more joy to my life, that I think is really important to remember. Like even though we're in the super intense program or super intense, like controlled part of our lives, we can still make the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that's so nice that the sense of empowerment, you can address this mental health issues or help maintain good mental health in your life. And that's super important. And I like that you brought that up. That's kind of all I have, Kaylee. Do you have any closing remarks for anyone, even if they're not in PT school, any graduate program, anyone that's struggling to maintain good mental health? Do you have any closing takeaways or closing remarks?
Yeah, I just think honestly it's something that everyone, no matter what stress you may or may not have in your life, can benefit from a mental health practice or a mindfulness practice. And this is something that recognizing you need help, whether that be like actually going to therapy or just taking time to implement more just little moments promoting your own mental health in your life, is not a sign of weakness whatsoever. In fact, it's a huge sign of strength. And so I just want to also encourage anyone that is trying to do this and finding it really difficult. I do too. Like it's a practice. All of this is a practice. It's something that takes a lifetime, and even then we might not necessarily become masters at it, but it's just something that little decisions and little actions make a huge difference in the long run. So don't lose faith if you find it really hard, and maybe start small. But my heart goes out to you all, and I'm with you. And yeah, just thank you so much for letting me talk about this. I
Yeah,
love
no.
this.
Thank you so much for being able to talk about this and joining me. Especially, we just passed May, which is the Mental Health Awareness Month,
Mhm.
and it's just I love this topic. It's super important to me as well. I think it's just great to bring a lightness awareness to it, and it's something that everyone should be able to work on and practice. Everyone deserves to be happy. So why not equip ourselves with the tools to be able to get there?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Ruben.
Yeah, thank you for joining me, and thank you everyone for listening, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks, guys, for tuning in to today's episode of Broken Stressed. If you enjoyed the podcast, make sure to smash that follow or subscribe button to get notified whenever new episodes are released. If you want to connect with me on social media, you can find me on YouTube or Instagram. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.